yadaivam sarva-dharmāṇām utpādo nopapadyate tadaivam sarva-dharmāṇām nirodho nopapadyate.
Yadaiva sarva-dharmāṇām utpādo nopapadyate tadaiva sarva-dharmāṇām nirodho nopapadyate. MMK chapter 7 verse 29. At the very moment when, for all happenings, birth is impossible, then equally, for all happenings, death is impossible. So I've translated that verse in a way that it means something to me when I'm practicing Zazen. The alternative again is to read it as an assertion in ontology. Ontology, I keep mentioning, it's the branch of metaphysics dealing with the nature of being, the philosophical study of being. But what I'm suggesting Nāgārjuna is interested in, what the Buddha was interested in, was not being and non-being. Those are the two viewpoints to be abandoned. What they were interested in was practice. In philosophy, that's called soteriology, from a Greek word meaning salvation. So what saves us in the Buddha's teaching is dukkha pariyanta karma action, dukkha pariyanta, that ends suffering. There's no philosophy that's going to end suffering. It's action, which is a happening and not a thing, which will end suffering. And so in this verse, we've got the word sarva-dharmāṇām, genitive plural, which means for all dharmas or of all dharmas. And with the meaning of dharma, it's taken me more than 30 years to arrive at an English word that I think translates it okay, and that word is happening. The penny dropped really after I heard Carlo Rovelli talk on the Life Scientific about what he compares things like stones and happenings like kisses, and at the level in which he studies the very, very minute level, he finds that there are no things like stones. There are events, in French, événements, happenings. And dharmas means happenings. So 30 or so years ago, before I started going back to the original Chinese and Japanese myself, I was relying on rewritten versions of Nishijima Sensei's translation of Shobogenzo, and those versions were rewritten in the first place by Mike Latchford, Geoffrey Bailey, and Larry Zaki. So I was the fourth of Nishijima Sensei's so-called four ejos. That is comparing we four foreigners to Master Dogen's main disciple, Korn Ejo. So the comparison was that we were his four ejos, loyally rewriting his English translation into, quote, our exact English sentences. And he continued to think it was like that, even after I'd started translating it for him. But at the beginning of that process, I remember him and Nishijima Sensei and Geoffrey Bailey had been discussing how to translate sarva-dharma. Well, no, in Chinese, shoho. So there's a very famous phrase in the Lotus Sutra, and it's a chapter of Shobogenzo, shoho jiso, which means all dharmas are real form. So jitsu means real, so means form, and sho means many or all, moro in colloquial Japanese, and ho means laws, but it represents law. Ho means law or method, but it represents the Sanskrit dharma. So shoho means all dharmas. So Jeff Bailey and Nishijima Sensei have been discussing how to translate all dharmas, and they came up with all things and phenomena. And the rationale for that was it's everything in Nishijima Sensei's explanation related to the balance of the autonomic nervous system. So the more parasympathetic side is concrete, real concrete things, and the more sympathetic side or more spiritual side is things like phenomena, mental phenomena. So body and mind, the physical thing and the mental phenomena. So if that's not prapancha, I don't know what is. Splitting dharma into the physical and the mental. That's namarupa. You've got ignorance, and out of ignorance, samskaras, things and phenomena that people contrive or confect. And then from samskaras, you've got divided consciousness, and out of divided consciousness, namarupa, body and mind, or things and phenomena. A little bit of resentment, let's face it, not a little bit of resentment, a lot of the depth of the resentment you might sense in my explanation. Partly it comes from being disrespected at that time, because when I remember being in Sensei's office and questioning that translation, and I seem to remember him telling me, well, we've decided, Jeff Bailey and I have decided, that's it, that's how it's going to be translated, all things and phenomena. Of course, when I started translating it, when I went back to the Chinese and the Japanese, Nishijima Sensei changed his tune because he realised I had something to contribute like that. But I never really forgot how much I'd been disrespected before he sort of realised that I was quite a bright spark when it came to translation work. So I sort of was listened to more. But when I was 23, 24, seeds of future resentment were sown there. So sarva-dharmāṇām, it means all happenings, and it's not, for me, it's not only an intellectual exercise in getting the right translation, hitting the target. There's this kind of emotion behind it. There's this motivation to show that my teacher got it wrong, which he did, because sarva-dharmāṇām does not mean of all things and phenomena, or of for all things and phenomena. It means, in the first place, for me, for what's going on here and now as a happening. So I'm trying to say it's not an ontological problem. It's an existential problem for a practitioner. So not an existential problem, it's a practical problem, because a practitioner is also a happening. And then so, before I switched on the computer here, I just looked back again at what previous translators had said. And okay, so David Kalupahana, for him it's verse 29. Indeed, when the arising of all things is not appropriate, then the cessation of all things is also not appropriate. So sarva-dharmāṇām, of all things. No, dharma doesn't mean things. Things are samskaras. So then J. Garfield, for him it's verse 29. When the arising of any entity is not tenable, then the cessation of any entity is not tenable. So he translated any entity. Again, entity is not good. An entity is a thing like a stone. Dharma is a happening, like a kiss. It's Valentine's today, by the way, today, appropriately enough, speaking of kisses. Okay, and then Siddhari Sankatsa here in my Kindle. Just as it does not hold that there is the origination of any dharma, so it does not hold that there is the cessation of any dharma either. Okay, so much better really to leave it untranslated. A cowardly option, but the one I've generally tended to favour over the years. But now I'm going to translate dharma because I've got the word that fits, and the word is happenings. You see, and then the question is, do we translate for all happenings or of all happenings? The difference is of all dharmas, or of any dharma, the origination of any dharma. He's still talking as if a dharma is out there, so it's an ontological discussion. But if we say for any happening, or for all dharmas, for all happenings, the for a happening includes me as a happening. It includes this practice as a happening. So, for this practice, birth is impossible. For this practice, death is impossible. As a person, I was born 25th of December 1959, and I shall die who knows when. But insofar as I am a practice, so far as this practice is going on, as a happening, it wasn't born and it'll never die, because a happening is not susceptible to being born and dying. And if that sounds like a sort of a fine distinction, it's the most important distinction that the Buddha made. All samskaras are impermanent and full of suffering. All dharmas are empty of self, are anatman, they're not self. So the most important, most fundamental matter is to understand the difference between samskaras and dharmas. And that most fundamental matter, my own teacher never understood the difference. So now I'm explaining the difference, and I look on YouTube, and appropriately enough, all my recent videos say no views, no views, no views, which is ironically appropriate, because that's the whole point, is not to have any views. But it just makes me think, well, part of it must be what's it called, Occam's razor. People aren't interested in what I'm saying because there must be something in the way that I'm saying it that puts people off. But at the same time, I know what I'm saying, people should understand. So it partly reflects that the world is so full of bloody stupid people who follow the shadow. Because you look at people who haven't got a clue what the Buddha taught, but they attract a tremendous amount of interest. Can only shake your head and carry on, really. At the very moment when, that's yadaiva, yada is when, and eva is emphatic. So at the very moment when, sarva-dharmāṇām, for all happenings, utpādo, nominative singular masculine, utpādo means birth or arising or genesis. Nopapadyate is impossible. Not, upapadyate is possible. So I've translated here birth, because for happenings are the Dharma that the Buddha taught, the happening, the big happening with a capital H that the Buddha taught, the true Dharma, is pratitya samutpadam, going up by going back. And that happening is nirodho and utpādam, beyond birth, beyond death, beyond birth. So beyond arising, beyond cessation. but beyond birth, beyond death, makes the point emphatically enough. Birth is impossible. Utpādo nopapadyate. Then, equally, tadaiva. So tada means then, at that moment, eva, emphatic. So I've translated eva as equally. Then equally, for all dharma, for all happenings, tadaiva sarva-dharmāṇām, nirodho nopapadyate. Nirodha, nominative singular masculine, cessation, death, destruction, stopping. But here, the word that has the most soteriological impact is death. Nirodho nopapadyate. Sarva-dharmāṇām nirodho nopapadyate. For all happenings, death is impossible. That is the whole point of MMK. And so how can you spend years and years translating it and the penny totally fails to drop? So here we got Kalapahana says, the cessation of all things is also not appropriate. Who's talking about being appropriate? Fuck being appropriate. He's talking about life and death. Then the cessation of any entity is not tenable. Professor of Philosophy J. Garfield wants to discuss what's tenable in ontology. And Sideris and Katra, it does not hold that there is the cessation of any dharma either. Well, that's closest to the three, to be honest. But still, what has the more impact, I would suggest, is for all happenings, death is impossible. For all happenings, death is impossible. So if you want to experience the impossibility of our own death, the task is to allow the happening, which is exploration of the self, leading to forgetting of the self, which is, in other words, the happening that the Zen teachers of China called Shinjin Datsuraku in Japanese, body and mind dropping off, which, if we look for the equivalent phrase in Nāgārjuna's writings, for example, we have again dukkha paryanta karma, the action that ends suffering. So that's Nishijima Sensei's philosophy of action. He recognized, he understood that it's action that puts an end to suffering. Just when he tried to explain it by translating Shobogenzo, he made the most dreadful balls up. The evidence is there in his translation, which I've got upstairs somewhere, which are frankly a load of old rubbish, and so was the attempted translation of MMK that he did. The motivation there was to dig out the real meaning, but didn't get past first base in a sense, translating sarva-dharmāṇām, sarva-dharmē in the nominative plural as all things and phenomena. No, it doesn't mean things and phenomena. Sarva-dharmā is all happenings. All happenings are empty of self. That's the point. All samskaras, in other words, all confections, all contrivances, all things and phenomena that are contrived in the minds of unenlightened people, they're full of suffering and impermanent. What is not samskaras is happenings, and happenings are anatman, not self. In other words, shunya, they are empty. empty of their own self-existence. Yadaiva sarva-dharmāṇām utpādo nopapadyate. Tadaiva sarva-dharmāṇām nirodho nopapadyate. At the very moment when, for all happenings, birth is impossible, then equally, for all happenings, death is impossible.
Yadaiva sarva-dharmāṇāṃ utpādo nopapadyate. Tadaiva sarva-dharmāṇāṃ nirodho nopapadyate.